Hello everyone, how we're doing? We had a few technical issues, so I do apologise, but we are live there now. Welcome to episode 25 of the Let's Get Heavy series, and this is our 25th anniversary episode, and we have a very special guest joining us this evening, and I cannot wait to chat to them. That guest is none other than Adam Gregory, who is the director of Bloodstock Festival. So let's get straight into it because Adam's time is very, very short. So without further ado, if you could please welcome Adam to the stream. Welcome, Adam. How are you tonight? Excellent. Pleased to hear it. Pleased to hear it. So, first of all, as I've just said, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with myself tonight. As we discussed behind the scenes, I've been a regular attendee of Bloodstock since 2014, only missing 2 of those. And also want to thank yourself and everyone behind the scenes for all your hard work that you guys put in, because Bloodstock, for me, much like everyone else, is home.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. Thank you.
No.
Bloodstock, at the end of the day, without the fans is no show. So, we do reciprocate that thanks. So, it's to everyone out there.
Thank you. Yeah, like I say, it's always been a place where I feel safe. Everyone's just like me. Do you know what I mean? So it is home away from home. So I can't thank you guys enough. So, now, as the director of Bloodstock Festival, you oversee a massive undertaking. Can you tell us a bit about the journey to this role and what initially drew you to the world of music?
Be honest, it was purely accidental. My dad, he's been an artist for many years. He was doing album covers for Saxon and Dio, among many others over the years. Molly Hatchet and whatnot. Basically just fell into it. I think they were sort of bored in Derby City Centre one day in the pub chatting with some friends, and just thought, you know what, there's no way you can go to sort of listen to live metal rock music or heavy rock music at the time. I think Monsters of Rock had finished. Download didn't start till 03.
Yep.
And then one of his friends turned around, and this is the danger of drinking, I guess. One of his friends turned around and said to him, Paul, you should start one. And that he pretty much stood up, went over to the assembly rooms in Derby and just booked the venue without really having a clue what he was doing. And I think at that time, because there was nothing, social media wasn't the animal it is today. It was a huge risk. So, because he'd sort of done album covers for Biff over the years at Saxon, he gave Biff a call and just said, do us a favour, just headline this show for me next year I'm doing. And Biff just went, yeah, okay, whatever. And it was at that point, it was kind of that easy. It was literally not a clue what we were doing, and it's not as easy as that today. And really I kind of fell into it with Rachel and Vicky, and the rest of the team, not understanding really what we were doing, just excited to be involved in something cool and different. So I was sort of backstage ferrying people around, picking up band riders from Asda of all places or wherever else we could get them from, and just learning the ropes along the way. It was back then it was as easy as that, and we've kind of grown with it. We've had the pains with it, of course, over the years, but we've grown with it, and we've got, I think, now something that's quite special for us and a lot of other people. So yeah, happy.
And what a risk! Like you say, you've took a risk, and look where that risk has brought you today.
Yeah, you know what I mean? In the early days, we didn't turn a profit, and we've been open about this previously for 12 years. It's such a mammoth amount of expense, and I don't think really people kind of understand it. We've all watched Wayne's World and just book the bands and they will come. Christ, if it was that easy, we'd all be doing it. But it's a huge gamble. It's a huge balancing act.
Yeah.
And in the early years, certainly, and not too many years ago, houses were on the line with this. It was a passion of everybody involved, and it's not just what we do. Let's not kid ourselves. We do this. Everybody else involved, from the bands and the fans and the crews, stage crews, the cleaning crews, everybody that sort of comes to Bloodstock and makes it what it is, plays a tremendously huge part. And for that, we're just, immensely grateful. We're part of something that's quite special.
And that is why it is fans, the crew, the yourselves, the organisers, everyone is just one big, happy, massive family, and that's why I absolutely love the festival. So, Going to the origins, could you tell us the story behind the inception of Bloodstock? What inspired yourself and the team to create this festival?
Again, it was just a lack of being anything that was sort of in the UK at the time. And alcohol. I think that was kind of it. As I said, Paul took that risk. He took that chance. At the time, it was with a guy called Vince Brotheridge, and it was both Paul and Vince that were founders of Bloodstock. Vince, for his own personal reasons, had to kind of bow out after a few years, and my dad just decided to take the risk on himself. And at that point, he kind of rallied his family, as it were. And we had day jobs. It wasn't a case of, right, let's do a festival and let's quit what we're doing and just do that. We all had day jobs. So I was working for a motor manufacturer up until probably 5-6 years ago. As a full-time job. And then Bloodstock was something I did part-time. The same for Rachel. Vicky does still have a full-time job, as daft as it sounds. And, she sort of spends a lot of evenings and weekends doing her work. So yeah, it was a labour of love and just a passion. It's something that we vehemently believed in, that could be something a bit different. And we wanted it to not be just another festival, another show that popped up and then disappeared again. We wanted it to be something that became almost iconic. And I think, I like to think we're kind of not far from that, if not there already.
Yeah, excellent. So on those early days, what were the biggest challenges in establishing Bloodstock in the early years, and how did you overcome them?
I think one of the biggest issues we had at the time was credibility. We weren't owned by one of the big PLC corporates. We were an independent festival trying to make a name and kind of be different. And getting that credibility with agents and suppliers alone, took a lot of time. Agents, you sort of email them and they just wouldn't reply. Didn't take you seriously. The offers weren't where they needed to be. There was a lot of naivety, I think, from our part in the early years, and we kind of grew through experience and conversations and relationships that we built over the years. And that took a tremendous amount of time. And it was the same with Metal to the Masses when that concept was out. Paul was a big advocate of supporting new talent. And when Metal to the Masses started, for the first few years, it fumbled along its way until Simon came on board. And, again, through Simon's grit and determination and hard work, it's become the sort of behemoth it is today. But that had to go through those same growing pains of building its credibility and not being another, oh, here we go, there's another sort of battle of the bands, pay-to-play type show. We had to set strict rules in place for that. And that, again, now has proven to be, I think it's the UK's biggest unsigned band search of kind of any genre, I think, nowadays. So,
yeah, definitely.
It's just knuckling down and sort of having that belief and carrying on with it, I think.
Metal to the Masses has probably been one of the greatest things I've ever seen into the metal community, especially here in the UK. And now I believe, I'm not sure if it's a Polish festival which has taken kind of your idea as well and running it as well. So you've influenced overseas festivals doing this now. So big shout to yourselves for supporting the upcoming artists.
That's on Simon's shoulders and Paul's shoulders, to be fair. They're the ones that put the Paul's ideas, Simon's grit and sort of dogged sort of determination to get on with it. And it's if somebody else is mirroring what we do, then surely that's just a compliment in the
exactly. So what's one of your most cherished Bloodstock memories? A band, a performance, a moment that really captured the spirit of the festival?
Yeah, it isn't a band and it isn't really a moment for me. I get the same feeling every year. I tend to sort of go up on stage early evening, just before sort of special guest headliners come on, and just sort of stand at the back and look at the crowd. And you just sort of have that moment of realization that everybody's turned up, everybody, the staging, the concessions, the bars, the people that are in the audience, the bands and everyone else has turned up for something that, you've been sort of instrumental in helping happen. And that to me, and I get the same feeling, the same motion every year. It's just an immense feeling of gratitude and sort of warmth. And, it's nice to be able to give back and create memories. We've had weddings, we've had engagements, we've had people not giving birth, but the conceptions have happened at Bloodstock, and they sort of tell you when it all happened, and we get the emails in, the photos, and people have been named after certain parts of the festival, and that's something that's just immensely special. I think that rather than any one particular moment, I think it's more the concept of the whole idea behind the festival and what it means to people. I think that to me is the biggest buzz I get out of being involved with Bloodstock.
Absolutely love that. So the evolution of the festival, how has Bloodstock evolved over the years, both in terms of scale and the musical range it represents?
Well, it started 2001. I think at the time there was a bit of a passion for a lacking in the UK, which was then it was power metal. And it kind of started as a I don't want to say specifically a power metal festival, but that's certainly where it leaned towards. The first show, there was just over 600 people at the assembly rooms. Everything was communicated via adverts in papers or magazines, and there was no internet as such, as I said at the time, to communicate like there is today. So it was very, very difficult. I think over time, we then sold out the assembly rooms, and by 2005, the idea was to take it outdoors. We didn't know whether it was sort of valid to go with an indoor and an outdoor. So we learned in 2005 that at that time it wasn't. So we ended up 2006 purely with the outdoor. And it kind of grew from there, really. And I think for us, there became a dynamic shift in that we were a metal festival and needed to encompass all genres of metal within what we do, which became, I guess, slightly problematic for the early supporters of the festival because they engaged because of the power metal. But, in the UK, the power metal scene isn't as big as it is in Europe. In sort of mainland Europe, it's different. And there are different tastes in different countries. And we see that now working with, and we work with a lot of European festivals. We've got good relationships with a lot of European festivals. They'll have headliners that will sell their shows out that wouldn't draw a crowd over here. And it is bizarre because there's some bands I absolutely adore that we can't put on. You think, well, why wouldn't you? So what we've tried to do is make Bloodstock more a celebration of multi-genres. So it's not specifically diluted down to one genre. Sometimes it can be heavier one year, whether it be sort of doom metal or black metal or prog or anything else like that. It can be sort of diluted a little bit more one way or another. That's not out of choice usually. That's out of availability on bands. We'll listen to the fans. We sort of do exit surveys. We scour the social media. We take the feedback and we look at what's popular and what people want to see. And if there's an opportunity, if there's an appetite, and we can book a band, we'll book them. And hopefully we're doing the right thing. But what we have learned over the years is not to be overly too critical. As much as we listen to the fans, you have to know when to sort of just hold back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you can get quite, as a fan, and I've done it in, my own. I follow a football team that I wish they were better than they are, but you can become quite emotional. And it's important that we don't take that overly personally, because I think people are allowed to express themselves, and that's good to do. Sometimes they can express themselves in very colourful manners, and we just have to learn to be able to step back from that and see what it is for what it is. But overall, I think people, certainly for this year as well, very, very happy with the bookings in general, and I think there's something there for everybody. So that's the goal, is to try and sort of give people not only what they want, but give them the opportunities to experience something more.
So speaking on the, because obviously you were an indoor festival first, how was the transition from indoors to outdoors?
It's quite scary at the time. You go from an indoor venue where everything is in-house, everything's on the table. Ultimately, there's bars that are pre-made, there's walls, there's doors. Security requirements are minimalistic. You're just covering a few entrances. To then going outdoors where you've pretty much got to put or build a town, a small village, whatever you're going to call it, in a field that has no infrastructure. So everything you take for granted, such as electricity and running water and structure, you've now got to create. You've got to create boundaries. You've got to then reinforce those boundaries. You've got to bring in medical provisions. There's licensing. There's a whole host of things that people generally don't think about or haven't thought about and take for granted, because when they go, we try and make it as well, I guess, as a homely a feel as possible, to have all the amenities that are available. So, what we have to think about, even so much as the road networks, traveling to and from the show, what obstructions are there? Last year we engaged with highways because they were going to close one of the major routes into the festival on the festival
I remember
weekend.
this, yeah.
Yeah, and we sort of, hang on a minute, we had to have a sort of emergency meeting with them 2 weeks before the show, and they actually didn't even know about Bloodstock for some bizarre reason. It hadn't been communicated.
Oh, wow.
So they were going to close one of these. Long story short, they were brilliant. They worked with us. They changed the weekend closures, and the show went on as it were. So it's the things that people don't appreciate that you'd expect just to be a normality that we have to spend a tremendous amount of time and effort in sort of making sure happens. So it is a big transition. There's a lot to do. But with the right team, anything's possible.
Nice. It's good that the actual council did that for you guys, well, because I remember the same year Download had roadwork issues as well, and there was an absolute nightmare of a time. People obviously get. Oh, of course,
yeah, I mean,
of course.
They're a different machine. They're bringing in, probably 4 or 5 times
different location as well.
Different location. There's a lot to consider in sort of bringing down. I know people had issues. I had problems getting into the show, on the first day, and it was just purely down to the amount of people turning up at the same time. These things happen, but we all live and learn, don't we?
Yeah, well, it was mainly people on coaches. A couple of friends of mine who were traveling on coaches. They had a bad experience, but like I say, everyone's gonna have different experiences, aren't they?
Of course they will.
So on the community of Bloodstock is known for its dedicated community. How do you foster this sense of belonging and camaraderie?
I think a lot of that is down to not hiding. We're very vocal. We're out there. We talk. We engage. Me personally, and I think the rest of the team, we don't put ourselves on any level of pedestal. We're exactly the same as everybody else who comes to Bloodstock or is part of it. We just do a job slightly differently. We're big fans of the music. On the festival weekend, we're out walking around, enjoying the show, talking to people as everybody else is. But also, I think it's important not to sort of shy away from criticism where there is some. And, we're going to get that. Of course we will. When you're in the public eye and you're putting on a show, people will be, will critique wherever they can. But it's important that when that happens, we engage with it the right way and we listen. And wherever possible, we do our best to do that. We don't see every comment. We don't see every single post. But we see, a tremendous amount of them. I've got admin control over the social media. And if I see a question and I'm looking at them daily, if I see something come in, a lot of the questions on there, I will be answering myself. And if there's something I can sort of shed light on or whatever, then we'll certainly do that. But even to the point that, where people were looking at certain facilitations from one year to the other, we had the extreme weather, the extreme hot weather a couple of years ago. And that caught everybody by shock. We weren't expecting it to be quite as hot as it was. We couldn't get structures in on the 11th hour because the amount of shows, COVID were coming out of the back of that. So there was no lorries, there was no transport, there was no structures because they were still being used as sort of COVID sort of areas. So we had to bring in stuff last minute. But then we kind of looked at it from one year to the next and made sure that the following year we brought in more covered structures and the water points were all looked at with sort of backup supplies and everything else. So we, as long as we can sort of see that there is change to make and we pursue that and we follow through so that the following year we wouldn't encounter the same issues. I think that's all you can do, but it's about being visual and sort of having a presence that anybody, and I mean anybody, can email me or email Vicky or Rachel or Paul. Our details are on the website. Just grab them. They're there. Fire us a message over, and you will get a reply. We don't ignore people, whether it's good or bad. As I said, some things we can't do for whatever reasons. It could be logistical, it could be licensing, it could be a multitude of things. But if there's something we can do, we'll try and engage and we'll try and make it, a great experience.
Yeah. Nice one. I've lost me complete train of thought there. So I will, I will swiftly. Oh yeah. So obviously you said do you actually get a lot of downtime? Do you actually get a lot of chance to go in and like walk around the actual festival, engage with a lot of people? Do you even get to watch some of the bands live?
I don't get to see many bands, and none of us do. We might get the odd band where we see one or two songs. If it's a band that's really sort of means something to us, we'll try and make an effort to at least go along and catch some of them. And it's always important to try and do that. I like to try and spend a bit of time with new blood bands as well, because that's the next breed of what's going to be on the stage and the main stage in, whether it be 5, 10, 15 years, whatever it may be, or sooner, of course. And we like to look around and walk around the site quite often. because we need to make sure that if we're experiencing something negative, then sod's law is somebody else's, and we need to make sure that's not happening. So wherever we can, we'll walk out into the fields, we'll walk out into the campsites, car parks, and we're always having a look to see if there's anything that could be better, or getting general feedback from people if there's something we can fix. So I've been very lucky to meet some amazing, incredible people having my wonders as I do. And it's an honour to meet such people that for me are digging deep in their own pockets and spending it with us. I think that's important to recognise that certainly in modern times, people are struggling. So to be able to give something that value to people and certainly say thank you in person, I think is important. And Vicky and Rachel and Paul, we all do the same thing. So it is about being visual, but I hate the concept of just sitting in a cabin backstage, and having your fingers crossed that it all goes according to plan. I think you've got to be out. We had it a few years ago, I think, when we had the high winds and we had to cancel Cradle of Filth from the Saturday to the Sunday.
That's correct. Yeah.
And we had to shut the stage down temporarily for an hour or so, but we didn't just sit backstage. Myself and Vicky both went out into the audience and we were talking to people at the front, letting them know what was going on. And I think that news was very quickly disseminated out amongst the crowd. Okay, well, we just spoken to such and such, this is what they said. And within an hour, the show was back on again. And we gave everybody that had a Saturday-only ticket to see Cradle free access to the Sunday.
Nice.
So they can come back and see them even though we moved days. So, it's about being in there and not hiding away. I think that's probably, for me, I guess, one of the biggest assets that we have is ourselves and our visibility.
That year you just mentioned with the high winds, that was 2019, was it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah. That year will be probably one of my all-time favorite Bloodstock, because I remember when Parkway Drive got announced and everyone online was bitching and moaning, and then the performance that those guys put on was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
We did actually have people after that show email in and say, I was the guy that was, one of the guys that was really giving you guys some shit about this and blah, blah, blah. He said, take it back. That show was immense. Well done. Well played.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that when we do announce a band, we've got a belief, Vicky and Simon and, I've probably been out and seen them at a local show. They're not getting a slot because, well, we'll just book them because, why not? They're getting a slot because when they've been seen by one of us, that show's literally been next level. It's blown us away and we want to share that experience. So, bands are booked on what we feel would really put on a good show for the fans. Plus, it offers a mix.
Plus, you give a band like a chance as well. So, my first Bloodstock was 2014, and Trivium was headlining.
Yeah.
I remember that day well because it was my birthday that day, and like I say, and then you've had Killswitch as well. How often do they get a UK festival headline shot? So Parkway Drive, another example. So you've always given at least a band a shot to try and look at. I'm not criticizing Download for what they do, but they've normally got a routine of the regular headliners, apart bar 2024. They've completely changed the landscape this year, but normally you guys give a band a shot, which is one of the things I absolutely love.
I think you have to. If we're only going to sort of talk about and speak about those existing bands that have got that sort of pedigree of performance and are probably in the twilight of their career, who's going to jump in?
That's it.
And for us, we've done it with Mastodon, we've done it with Ghost, we've done it with Gojira. We had Sleep Token a couple of years ago on Sophie Stage, who are selling out stadiums across the world.
Yeah, Sleep Token before look at where they are now.
Well, exactly. So you've got to be looking at the future, and I think that's something that we strongly believe in as a family and as a group of people that put the festival together. Is who's next? Who's going to take the shoes of your Tony Iommi's and Ozzy's and Bruce Dickinson's and everyone else? There's bands out there lining up. We love it when we've seen Metal to the Masters bands come through. They win the Metal to the Masters. They're then back a couple of years later on maybe the Sophie Stage. You've got bands this year opening up the main stage. There's so much that's credible, and that's not down to us just ticking a box. That's down to the bands actually delivering. So
Yeah,
it's
and just
important.
to name a few of those bands as well was what Bleeding Through, and
Yeah.
look at Malevolence as well. Do you know what I mean? Look,
Yeah.
so I mean, there's two bands because
Exploded, haven't they? You know, they've
yeah,
gone super big. You know, and fair play because they put the graft in. They're working hard.
yeah, I believe Bleeding Through were Metal to the Masses winners, and then they played
Mm.
Sophie, and then the year when obviously after COVID, I think it was 2021, which was like return sort of thing. Or was it? Yeah, they were on the main stage. Do you know what I mean? So look, yeah, so it can be done. So any bands out there who's listening to this right now, if you put the graft in, you can do it.
The opportunity is there, you know, and this is the big thing with Metal to the Masses. You don't pay to play. You don't have to sell tickets. All you've got to do is turn up and do your thing. You know, if you deliver on the day, you deliver on those shows. You know, you write your own futures. You know, when those bands come to the festival, we've got press, we've got agents, managers, labels, you know, fans. There's everybody there that's waiting on them. All they've got to do is deliver and make the most of their experience.
So, what do you think sets Bloodstock, the atmosphere, apart from any other metal festival?
I think it's the fans. I think it's the way that everybody interacts. It's the warm, welcoming feel that everybody feels as though Bloodstock is part of them and part of what they're about. You know, we've got, you know, a lot of credibility and history behind, I guess, what our core beliefs are with how we want people to be treated and treat each other. You know, and that's kind of right across the ranks. You know, from even the security providers that we utilize. You know, they're briefed. It's a very friendly festival. We don't want heavy-handedness. We want people engaged with, spoken to. Everybody's human. Doesn't matter what they look like, what they dress like. You know, it's their weekend to be who they want to be, and fair play, let them get on with it. So, you know, for us, we want everybody literally feeling as warm and fuzzy as possible. You know, and that's important. That, you know, we do have these conversations before the show in the debriefs, and things like the security, they love it. You know, it's one of the few shows that they're always oversubscribed for staff with security, because the fans just make the security guys again feel so welcome. You know, and they're having the laugh, they're having a bit of banter, and you know, big queue. They do as they're told. They're super friendly, super sort of amenable to, you know, and that's great, because if you go to some other of these, let's say, pop festivals, that's not the culture.
Yeah.
So it's a refreshing change that the fans are the way that they are, because you know what? I think they're the best fans on the planet by far. Don't come close to anything else.
Mention on the security at the last year's festival was absolutely hilarious. Just when you see the security circle pit at the front, just had me in absolute kinks. Just watching it on the big screen. They're having fun just as much as the fans, and I absolutely love that. That was funny.
Yeah, of course, and that's what it should be. You know, everybody we don't want it to be. It sounds a bit weird. You don't want it to be work. You want it to be an experience for them and for everybody else that's there. You know, as much as it is for the fans. So I think that's why we have such a loyal following, not only in fans but also in people that we work with, because everybody loves being part of it.
So beyond the music, Bloodstock offers more than just bands. Could you highlight some of the other attractions and activities that make the unique experience?
Okay, well, for 24, obviously we've got Rockfit coming back. They're returning from 23. So if you get your morning groove on, no problem. You've then got the gallery. And in the gallery this year, we've got something else that we'll be announcing very, very soon that's going to be a bit super special. So there is something coming that's going to be really cool, that I think is going to get a lot of attraction by people. And that's going to be a wider area of what we're doing outside of not just the gallery, but the actual festival itself this year. So more to come on that one. That's a bit of an exclusive, not even told anybody about yet. You've got the gaming arena. So we've got Xboxes, PlayStations, retro consoles, and
I have spent a little bit of time in there myself.
Yeah, well, we're all gamers at heart, aren't we? We're all kids at heart.
We are.
Yeah, I'm included in that realm. So, you know, I think that's something really cool that people can sort of go and spend a bit of time. If the kids are getting a bit bored, they can take the kids in there and let them have a little bit of a play around. Obviously, we've got the fairground. We've got, what else have we got? We've got battles. We've got the battle arena. So the Vikings will be back this year, especially with it being a month year.
Yes.
They'll be up there donning their wares and slapping each other around soon, which is good. We've actually legalised bin jousting in the Midgard campsite this year. So that's all. For those that have witnessed that and been part of that, then that is happening. There's just so much that's available to do. Then on top of that, you've got your metal markets, and a great selection of foods. I think the Spudman's there this year, which has been getting sort of global acclaim for his mashed potatoes and jacket potatoes. Sorry, so he's Spudman's there this year. So yeah, there's a lot. Oh, and let's not forget Guinness and lots of other beer brands, that are going to be there as well. Tropical Storm sponsoring our Metal to the Masters across the UK and at the show as well. So yeah, there's just choice, and that's the big thing as well with us, with Bloodstock. The beer choice is phenomenal.
Excellent.
Absolutely phenomenal.
I don't expect you to go into obviously full details, but the bin jousting that you just mentioned, that must have cost you guys an absolute fortune.
Well, the silly thing is, because what happens is that it's like anything, you've got to try and look after everybody and make sure everybody's safe. And bin jousting hasn't been allowed, although the fans have done it. We've tried to stop it. I've even walked down to one of the campsites late at night and took the bin away. One year myself personally, because we just need to stop it. And they still go off and find bins. They've got teams of people out hunting for bins across the whole weekend. And then they find them, they hide them somehow, and then bring them out at silly o'clock and start playing what they're playing. So we tried to stop it. We brought the inflatables in. Then they started climbing up the scaffold poles, and that's got a real danger because they've got like padlocks on them and pudlocks. So if somebody was to slide down one of those by accident, having a few too many beers, that could be really nasty for them in the groinal area. So we just thought, well, you know what? We're not going to stop this bin jousting. So what we try and need to do is we've got to make it as safe as possible. So we've had to jump through numerous hoops with health and safety, with licensing and everything else. And we've had the videos that have been circulating on YouTube, and everyone's been studying those to sort of, run a health and safety rule over them. And it's not 100% safe. People will have to sign a disclaimer, but we've got some bins. We're making them as safe as we can do. There will be certain rules. One of the main instigators behind the bin jousting, we've actually kind of took them on board to help run it properly. So that it's being engaged with the right way. But what we don't want to do is suck the fun out of it by making it all rules. It still needs to be the fun element it was, but we've got to try and minimise the risk for not only the festival, but certainly for the fans, so that they can actually do it, have a laugh and enjoy themselves, but do it safely as they can do. So yes, it's been fun. It's been a fun exercise, to say the least.
Yeah, my first, obviously I didn't partake, but my first experience seeing it was back in 2014. And I was absolutely blown away by it. I didn't really understand what was going on at first, but I was like, yeah, this is what happens when you get a large group of people together and alcohol's involved, and probably other sort of substances. But yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of, although it originated and started at Bloodstock, I think it's kind of got to the point where I've seen sight of another few festivals where it happens now.
Right.
Let's be honest. I think the Bloodstock crowd, they instigate trends globally. I mean, the Viking rowing from Monomarth, that originated at Bloodstock as well. And now that kind of went around the world, and it happens at a lot of their shows now. So, our fans have got a lot to be proud of.
Nice.
Yeah,
So, future visions. What are your biggest goals for the future of Bloodstock, and where do you see us? Where do you see the festival in 5 or even 10 years' time?
Well, it's that old synergy of sort of don't try and fix something that's not broken. We're not needing to sell 50, 60, 80,000 tickets. We're not P&L led by any means, and I'm not saying other festivals are, but with us, it's very much around Bloodstock at the moment is great. It works. It ticks the box. Everyone has a great time. It's ticking along quite nicely. I think aspirationally, certainly where we are, I think 20 to 25,000 is probably the cap. We're capped at 20,000 at the moment, and last year I think we also like 300 tickets away from a sellout. So we're kind of thereabouts on where we want to be and where we're happy. There's a small element of growth we could do, but I think if we get too big, you lose that intimacy. and we don't want to do that. We want to keep that family feel, that warm festival feel, because that's what separates us from every other show that I go to, is the way that people interact and feel at Bloodstock. So I just feel, and I think we're united in that with myself, Rachel, and Vicky and Paul, that if we did get too big, we could put that at risk, and we don't want to do that. So from where we sit today, we don't want too much change. What we do want to do is just make it exciting and fun, and bring in some difference each year that people go, oh wow, that's cool. And we'll definitely have that this year. I know what's coming in. So there's going to be some really cool things that people are going to go, oh, that is so cool. And that's what you want. You want to create those memory moments. So that's our aspirational plan moving forward. Just keep doing what we're doing.
So expanding the horizons, are there any new genres, subgenres of metal that you'd like to explore bringing into the Bloodstock lineup?
That's a Vicky and Simon call. For me, I think with metal, it's probably got one of the most diverse and interesting, subgenre categories of any music genre out there. You can keep going on, and there's new things coming up daily, weekly, monthly that we've never heard of. I think it's important to bring in different cultural bands that whether they be coming from Mongolia or India or Japan or the sort of globally. I think it's important to sort of have representation where we can of difference and something that's quite unique. We had Yuhai last year, who were it was last year before, who were absolutely superb. Fantastic. There's another band coming in this year, and the name escapes me just now. We announced them a few weeks ago. Again, very unique sounds, and that's what I love. I love that difference and that expansion of culture, I think, coming into music. But that works probably better with metal than it does kind of any other genre of music.
Yeah.
And I think the metal fan are probably more accepting of that. So it's important, I think, that we continue to keep doing that.
Yeah. Alien Weaponry as well springs to mind as well. Adding Maui into metal was just absolutely genius. Absolutely genius.
And they're doing great. They're doing great at the minute as well. So it's lovely to be a sort of part of that journey. Bringing bands in like Ginger. When you've got such a diverse and sort of colourful array of vocals, the vocal range on her is unbelievable. And I still show people now that I've never really listened to metal. Listen to this. And it's like they don't believe what they're seeing. So having that level of diversity within the bands that we're lucky enough to to sort of have sort of grace our shores, if you like, I think is a beautiful thing and something we should keep doing.
So for yourself, Adam, if you could book any band in the world, past, present, to headline Bloodstock, who would it be and why?
I would love, if I'm honest, to have Ronnie James Dio there himself. Gracing his own stage, I think for me would be something. We came very, very close to that happening. Obviously, it wasn't called the Ronnie James Dio stage at the time, but they were booked to play in 2010. And obviously Ronnie then passed away in that year. So that was a sort of a really special moment. Now I think for me that's probably the icon, because I don't think anybody can really sort of replicate that voice, and there's only one Ronnie James Dio as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, he would be my guy, if you like.
Cannot agree more on that. One absolute amazing man. Did you ever get to see him live out of curiosity?
I didn't. No, and that's why I was so looking forward to 2010. My dad had obviously met him a couple of times because he did a couple of Dio's albums for him, a couple of the covers. So he painted a few of those. And that was kind of one of the big reasons that I was so excited about they were playing, because I knew the vocal range, and we all hear the music on, at that time iPods or whatever else it was, but to sort of see that live, I think was a treat, and that's something we were looking forward to. They were due to play with Heaven and Hell that year, but it unfortunately didn't happen.
Yeah. My brother from another mother, who I attend Bloodstock with regularly, he saw Heaven and Hell 2009 at Sonosphere, and he never lets me live it down. And then my mom's the same. She got to see Ronnie James Dio with Rainbow in good old Whitley Bay in the northeast of England, in a small little arena, and the pair of them, when they get together, never let me live it down, because I never got to see Ronnie James Dio live, and I am
No, it's
absolutely
a shame.
gutted.
And you might have broke your Bloodstock cherry earlier had that been able to happen. But
Probably,
yeah,
most
but they
definitely.
were booked. They had been announced to appear that they were appearing, and it was just such a sad case of events that happened that it is what it is.
Yeah, 2010, 2011, that was the Sonosphere years for me.
Yeah,
Those were my
Yeah.
years. Viz. So,
yeah.
pretty much coming close to the end of my questions before we switch it over to any of our live viewers in chat. But challenges, what potential challenges do you foresee for the festival in the future, and how do you plan to navigate them?
I think the biggest, and it's not just for Bloodstock. Most festivals at the moment is the rising cost base. It's something that's kind of in the last since COVID really has spiraled. We've been seeing best part of 40% increases in costs just to put the show on to the same level as the previous year without adding in anything else. But every event's seeing that. We've been seeing unprecedented festival closures and cancellations. We're very fortunate in the fact that that's not something that's on our horizon, which is very, very fortunate for us, and that's based on the fact that Rachel is very, very dogged with the money, if you like. So, we sort of work very, very hard with our suppliers to get the best value from them. But what we don't want to do is just be saying, all right, there's a 40% increase in cost, right, charge 40% more for the tickets, because that's not then fair to the fans. So it's trying to find the best way forward, if you like, to bring in additional revenues that doesn't hit the fan in the pocket. And that's one of the things that we work very, very hard for and with. We work with sponsorship partners to help sort of cushion that and take some cost basis out of it for us. So whether it's beers or whatever else, it's something that I think if we can continue to do that and sort of protect the fans financially and try and bring in as much value as possible. But what we don't want to do is put on a show with, right, there's the cheapest possible beer we could find, and we're going to charge an absolute premium for it. I'd rather people came to the festival and right, we've got all these different drinks and offerings for you of choice and quality, and then not try and charge an absolute fortune for them. So, we do sort of cut into our own margins quite heavily each year, but we're fans of the festival, we're fans of music. It's deliver the experience, I think, for us that we would expect to receive. And if we can do that, then we're kind of halfway there.
So we are ready to turn it over to anyone who is watching live. So anyone who is currently watching live, if you can use the channel point redemption, ask a question. Otherwise, it'll get missed and won't get answered. So while we all waiting for people to type, just a little quick fire. Craziest backstage story.
Oh, these have caught me on the hop then because I'm not prepared for any of these. Craziest backstage story. I think I'm not going to name names for obvious reason, but there was this time once that I think Vicky was having a hard time by a band that was being particularly difficult, because occasionally bands can be, and demanding. They probably had a busy tour cycle, and when they went on to stage and did their thing, and it was nighttime, Vicky decided to go into the dressing room and take all the rider out of the dressing room and the light bulbs, and they had to. They got back to the dressing room after the show, obviously, and kind of learned a little bit of a lesson about humility, I think, at that time.
Nice.
And, conversation was had and light was restored. So
good on Vicky. What a legend. And last one.
I think Vicky's had a bit of a rough ride when it comes to being a woman in the industry in the early years as well. So she had some battles of her own, and this was certainly in the early years, where it was difficult because women weren't taken seriously. And I think there are still some obviously challenges with certain women in the industry now as well that don't get the respect that they more than deserve. So yeah, she had a point to prove and proved it well, I believe.
Oh, sounds like she's done a really good job. Well done, Vicky. Kicking some ass, eh? And I've got a couple of questions, but before we do, one thing you can't live without at a festival.
Wet wipes. Everybody says wet wipes, but it's ultimately wet wipes. And good friends. Wet wipes and good friends. That's what I think you need.
Excellent. There you go. So, first question is from Bags for Dice. What band have you booked that your teenage self would be amazed at?
What band have we booked?
Yeah.
Or should we book?
Well, what band have you booked?
Have you booked? Well, for me, it was Judas Priest. That was one of my sort of teenage, early year bands that I absolutely loved. And when we booked Judas Priest, we've been trying for about 4 years to book them. But when I go back to that conversation we had earlier about credibility in the marketplace and everything else, it took a lot of time to build that, and that was working with the agents and managements and people at the time. After we booked them, they became great friends. Ian Hill brought his son to the festival a couple of times before they played, because he doesn't live too far away from Bloodstock, which is nice. And that kind of helped us. And, I sort of class them now as sort of good friends, a lot of the guys there. So I think that level of credibility was important. But yeah, certainly for me, I think Judas Priest was probably the biggest one for me personally.
Evil Penguin, are there any plans to replace Rock Society with a similar sort of thing now that this is the last year of Rock Society?
Yeah, I mean, Rock Society, we had this conversation with Lisa and Lee, who run it, with the rest of the team. It kind of diluted itself over the years because a lot of people were using it for ultimately what, if you like, VIP light, if you like. They were kind of buying tickets for that, for the Rock Sock, just so they can go to VIP. So they weren't then actually ever engaging with the Rock Society at all. So, in I guess the Rock Society's own admission, they felt it was probably time for a change, to do something different. We are talking at the moment about how we kind of reinvest and reinvite people to be part of something. I think it's important that people have that opportunity to be part of something. What that looks like today, I don't know, because it's a decision that's only been made very recently. But it's certainly something I think that, yes, we are conscious and we are aware of it, but we don't want to do something just for the sake of doing something. We want to do something that's going to add value. So it's important that whatever we do is done for the right reasons. So watch this space.
There we go, Evil Penguin. Hope that answers your question for you, sir. Another one from Bags for Dice. Has any band really surprised you with their rider?
We've been really fortunate. To be fair, no, I mean, I had a story once that, and again, I can't name the band, but the band, and they played Bloodstock, so you can narrow it down to one of the bands that's played Bloodstock over the years. They did tell me once that they'd requested at a festival show a few years prior to have a horse made available. Not because he actually needed a horse or wanted a horse. They just said, the festival said, whatever you want, just let us know, we'll sort it. So I can't have a horse then. Not expecting a horse to be available. And when he turned up, he had a white steed delivered to his dressing room, which he then proceeded to jump on. And he rode on stage to the previous band that was on before them, and actually took the horse on stage for some bizarre reason. So yeah, I think that's the craziest story I've heard, but we've been very fortunate and not had anything too lavish, let's say.
Right. Get in. Super Metal, what headliner would you like to book that people wouldn't expect?
This is a controversial one. For me, I love Five Finger Death Punch. And for whatever reason, I think, some of the songs that they sing kind of pull on heartstrings, and they're quite emotional, and I think they've got a great sound. For whatever reason, I'm told, and Vicky says to me, they just wouldn't work at Bloodstock. And it's important that we book bands that the fans want to see, not what I want to see. So, I think there's a lot of great talent out there that deserves stage time, but that's why I don't book the bands, I'm told, because I would book everybody I love, but that might not necessarily translate into everybody that everybody else does. And there's a distinction that we're told between a Bloodstock band and a download band, and we get that thrown at us quite a lot, and we see that a lot of the socials. Again, I'm not 100% sure I know what that is. I think if it's a metal band, surely they deserve to play on a metal festival, but let the fans tell me different.
I mean, that being said, Architects, for example, would you say there? And how can you have Architects but not Five Finger Death Punch? This year, I think Five Finger Death Punch would fit perfectly, personally.
I do. I think they'd fit every year. But it's I guess it's one of those things. The fans are the people that sort of make that vote, and they've got to decide whether that's the band they want to see. And if everyone's asking for it and everyone's agreeing, there's a dialogue. We can have a conversation, and we can maybe do something. But it's important that we try and book the bands that people want. When we announced Architects, it's probably one of the biggest cheers that we've ever had for a band that's been pre-announced from the show, because we always try and announce a few bands for the following year. at that year's Bloodstock, which is something I think that we've become a bit synonymous with as well. So makes Vicky's job a little bit trickier. But it's important that we're booking those bands correctly. And we were massively and pleasantly surprised that Architects got the cheer that they did. And I think again they're going to be that band that just shock everybody and put out a great performance and turn all the people from, oh, that's the download band, into actually that's a great band, in the same way that Partway Drive did.
Nice. Yeah. Evil Penguin once more. Are there any plans for Bloodstock Twitch channel to make a return in the future?
I'd like it to. I think we've got to find. The guys that did Twitch before did a great job. It's something to me. I don't understand Twitch completely. It's very technical, and those people that do, I commend and bow and give all the credit.
You get technical issues like what we had at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I still miss MySpace. That's how far back I am.
Yes.
So yeah. So yes, I think we'd like to. We've got to find the right people, the right team that can take that forward in the right way. What that content looks like. I think Twitch, when it first started, was very much around just gaming, and it was gaming channels and things like that. But it's evolved in the same way that a lot of social media does, and we just want to make sure that we're kind of innovating and leading that, or being at least up the front with how that channel looks. So yes, it is on the radar, and it is something that we want to look at, and we'll need to invest in that to make it happen and bring it back the right way. So. If anyone wants to give us a shout, my email is, find me one over and let's have a chat.
Nice one. I know bloody random up, but definitely seems quite interested in there.
I've done it before. Been there before. It's just, as I said, we just want to. It's just wanted to make it have that sort of diversity of content that a lot of Twitch channels have. And we sort of look at Twitch channels now, and they're very diverse with the amount of content they've got.
Yeah. Oh, I might have to drop yourselves an email myself sometime then. Maybe, who knows? I'll get myself on there. One more from Bags for Dice. Rather than expanding the capacity, would you ever do 2 sites, north and south, like Leeds and Reading, for example?
I don't think for the Bloodstock audience that would probably work. We're very. The thing is with I guess if you look at Reading and Leeds, for example. And where they've got a north and south show, you've got that. I don't know word this the wrong way. Popularity of audience with respect. It's kind of Reading and Leeds used to be a lot heavier than it is today.
Yeah.
So they're booking bands that are popular and there's an audience out there to see. I think with metal, and certainly on the heavier side of metal, which is where Bloodstock tends to sit, the audience is a little bit more finite. If we were selling out every year at Bloodstock, then absolutely that lends itself to a conversation of maybe we do something, south and north or whatever it is. But where we're located in the Midlands, it's reachable for most people. It's commutable very easily, and at the moment it works, and it works well. I'd never say never, but at the moment I think where we sit is a good place.
And I'm disappointed this has taken so long for this question to come through, but I think this is a good one to end with. If you can fit a final question in for me, what is your Greg's order? My
Greg's order. I'm a chicken bake guy. I do. If I could do chicken bake with beans, then I'd do that. But chicken bake for me. That's
Nice. Well, before we do call there, I have actually got a little. I wouldn't say a feedback suggestion, or maybe just a little idea for Metal to the Masses. So obviously you guys have done absolutely a fantastic job with Metal to the Masses. Have you ever considered broadening its scope? How about hosting another Battle of the Bands on the New Blood stage during the festival? The band with the maybe like have a point system where the bands with the most points on each day can then return to next year's event and open the main stage. This will obviously increase exposure for new bands. It provides a massive platform for upcoming acts. The chance to potentially open the main stage following year is a huge motivational prize and brings immense visibility for the winners. So,
well, what happens at the moment is those bands. There is a judging process that happens over the weekend. So, for argument's sake, last year Some sponsors, including ESP gave us 10 guitars, and we awarded 10 bands from Metal to the Masses winners that were actually at the festival a guitar each. We try and sort of make sure there's kind of some opportunity for bands. What Simon does, and this is something that's very important to note as well, when bands get through to Bloodstock and get through to Metal to the Masses, it's not right, there's your pinnacle of your career, fantastic, well done, you may now retire. This, for Bloodstock, for them, is nothing other than a stepping stone to level 2. And that's all we look at it for. This should be classed as a stepping stone. So Simon will not only sort of watch the bands and sort of take note of who's playing, how they're playing and everything else, but he'll follow them as well for the following year or so and see how they're getting on. See, are those bands taking advantage of the opportunities that they've got available to them? Not just at Bloodstock, but in the wider arena. We offer bands the opportunity to go and play at one of our European partners. So
I'll see.
There's a couple of festivals Simon's talking to this year that for next year we're thinking, right, well, if we can choose a top winner from this year, we'll let them have the opportunity to go to one of these European shows, and we'll reciprocate and bring one of those European unsigned artists over to the UK, because I think it's important that we recognise that metal is global, and there's a lot of bands out there that our fans would love to see. So we need to give them that opportunity to do that, and that's all about encouraging new partnerships, but also new bands to sort of get involved. I mean, Metal to the Masses in itself is an absolute marvel. It's a wonder. I was in Ireland a couple of weeks ago at one of the heats in Dublin, and it was absolutely packed. And this is for unsigned bands that people say would never amount to anything, but they have such an incredible following, and there's such great talent. I mean, the talent pool, I'm thinking it's me with a triangle. These are actual proper musicians that really know their trade, that are absolutely impeccable, and they are brilliant. Every band that sort of enters, you have to give credit and kudos to, because they're putting themselves out there, and they're putting their sort of wares and their art there, and it's there to be critiqued, if you like, to a degree. And we say to bands, if they don't get through in year 1, go again in year 2 or year 3, and bands do. And Simon sees these bands come through, and when they get through to the finals and they're playing at Bloodstock, then to probably potentially in some cases some of the biggest audiences they're ever going to play against or ever have played against to date, it's worth its weight in gold, I think, for the bands. And it's nice that Metal to the Masses is viewed that way. But it's important more than anything else that we don't just utilize it as, well, it's just a way of getting cheap bands. It's not. There's a lot of passion behind what goes into Metal to the Masses, and there's a lot of follow through to make sure that the opportunities don't end with Bloodstock. There are further opportunities, and this is why we say to a band, if you're going to turn up, don't just turn up and get hammered, do your showing and think, what a great weekend. Utilize the fact you've got access to press and to agents and to labels and to management and everybody else and the fans, and work it for your advantage, because that's going to make the difference between a successful band and a band that's just happy to sort of get to a level. And a lot of bands, and I'm delighted to say, do try and make it work. It doesn't work for every band, of course it doesn't, but we're trying to find that next Metallica or Maiden or Rammstein or Black Sabbath or anybody else, or Judas Priest as well. We're trying to find that next tier, and they are there. They just need that sort of stepping stone.
Yeah, that's why I suggested what was said, where they can come back the following year, where obviously the Friday win and the Saturday and then the Sunday, obviously that they're going to open the main stage, just have that little bit of experience for them, just to give them that little bit of a push, if you will.
Well, Simon does that with Sophie stage, so he just bring one back for the following year for the Sophie stage.
Right.
But it opens on the Thursday night, so we are kind of doing that, and then what we like to try and do is track them through, so they go from the New Blood stage, whether it be the Jaeger stage or the Sophie stage, and like we've got this year, opening the Sunday on the main stage. So the bands, it's great to see that progression coming through, and it's important, I think, for the fans and the bands that does happen, and there's transparency to it as well.
Excellent, very much for that. So anything that you wish to plug before we call it a night?
Tickets. Why not tickets?
Yeah.
If you haven't got them.
If you haven't got your Bloodstock tickets, why not? Go and get them now.
Go and get those. What's wrong with you?
I'm not sure if has the deposit scheme, is that passed now?
That finishes tomorrow night.
Tomorrow. So anyone.
We have an extra day this year because it's 29 days, which we forgot about.
Yes.
So yeah, it actually finishes tomorrow night for the deposit scheme, so you can do it that way and make it far more affordable. But you know, whatever. If Bloodstock's not your thing, if you've not tried it, give it a go, because I think you'll be very, very surprised in a good way. So hopefully see everybody in a field in a few months.
Well, I probably should have asked this as well earlier on. Any advice that you can give to myself, a couple of my partners in chat? We do have a small festival here in the Newcastle Gateshead area called Get Heavy Fest. And for not just myself, for anyone else who may be considering running their own festival, what advice would you give to those?
It is hard. It is difficult. Everybody will tell you it won't work. It can't happen. And we were told that by industry, you know, in the early years. You know, you're wasting your time. It's never going to be anything. Is not to listen to the haters. You know, if you've got a belief in something, follow it through. You know, don't give up. Keep plugging away. You'll get far many no's than yeses in this industry. But you have to sort of be a little bit resilient and not give up, and don't listen to the negative. You know, if you've got a passion for something, if you've got that passion, I can guarantee there's lots of other people with a similar passion who will join forces and make what you do, you know, successful. It just unfortunately takes time.
Yeah.
You know, don't sort of run before you can walk with it. We've seen shows that have done that, and it's kind of not worked. You know, it's as a business model, it's risky, of course it is, but as with any business, of course, they always carry risk. But it's so rewarding, you know, when it starts to work and starts to, you know, reap those rewards, and just enjoy it. That's the big thing, I think. Just enjoy it.
We're in our second year, so this will be our second year for Get Heavy Fest. We are literally the weekend after Bloodstock, so 1 week after Bloodstock is our one-day festival, 17th of August in Gateshead. Yeah, because everyone everyone gets them Bloodstock blues. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's why I was like, 1 week after, have a little festival here in Newcastle for anyone who's got them Bloodstock blues.
Great part of the city as well.
Yeah. My two partners who are currently in chat, we had the idea of streaming it as well. So anyone from overseas who wouldn't get a chance to see some of these bands, because we do get a lot of the Metal to the Masses winners on our shows as well, and we'll stream it live. Give them a chance to see them live as well. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's a good opportunity for bands, again, get that extra exposure, you know, and utilize those platforms wherever possible. So, yeah, well done to you for doing that. Brilliant.
Thank you very much for your time. I cannot thank you enough. It's been an absolute honor to chat with yourself tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No worries. Hopefully, I'll see you at Bloodstock, because I will be there.
Yes.
And I'll come by and say hello. Excellent.
Yeah, please do.
Anyone who is watching live, please hang around. We'll be spinning some tunes straight after this interview, and I'll end with this: the rules of the pit are the rules for life. When one falls, we pick them up. Hang around, guys. See you soon.